My name is Drew Marlowe. I always write this down so I don't forget, but I've been introduced, so sorry. My wife, generally critiques me. She's not here today, but she did make the PowerPoint for me. So this is my family. My wife, Sarah Catherine, and my 3 children. Mac is in the middle, Grace is on the left, and Mary Kate is on the right. And I'll tell you a little bit in a little while sort of how we became a family. And I just want to share with you guys this morning the story of what the Lord has done in my life and the ways that I have failed, and that through His grace He has revealed to me and convicted me and changed, and it's an ongoing process. Constantly veering off the path that I should be on, and Him bringing me back. So that's sort of what the story is. 3 to 4 years before I became a head coach, the Lord started preparing me and my wife, really placing on our hearts a burden for high school age boys. And specifically in our community, I decided as soon as I graduated from high school that I wanted to be a football coach. And so I graduated from high school on a Saturday and started coaching on a Monday at the school that I went to in Sumter. I'm originally from Sumter, at Sumter High. And so going through, I loved everything about it. Number one, I loved football. I'd played it my whole life and was having a hard time letting go. So coaching seemed like something that would keep me, close to it. But I also really enjoyed the schematic part of it, trying to figure out how to beat the other guy. And just the competitive nature of it is something that I really liked. About 5 years into our marriage, my wife came to me and said, "Hey, I think the Lord is really calling us to foster care, to be foster parents." At that time, I wasn't ready to be a parent in any way, shape, or form, so I told her that I thought that she must have just seen a commercial and that wasn't real. I did not feel that, even a little bit. And to my wife's credit, she just said, okay. About 6 months later, she kind of brought it up again, and I thought, shoot, I thought this would sort of just kind of go away, but it didn't. 6 months later, she brought it up again, and I this time decided that I was really going to pray about this and see if this was the path that the Lord had for us. And it didn't take very long for me to realize, yes, the Lord was calling us down this path. I don't know how familiar any of you are with foster care, specifically the training that goes into becoming a foster parent, but it is extensive. And it was about a 14-month process for us. But through that, the foster care training made the reality and sort of the situation that a lot of my players were in, I saw it for the first time. I was kind of always the guy that said, everybody has the same opportunity. Well, that's not true. That's not true. The baseball analogy of me personally, I was born on third base, with Derek Jeter at the plate. I was going to get home, but so many of my former players and current players, and when they're born, they're in the box with 2 strikes, and the path to ultimately get to where you want to go is very different for a lot of people. And that was something that I, kind of because I chose to, I was blind to. But going through foster care training and understanding and thinking about, when you're going through these trainings and they're talking about these kids, like it was just real for me. I was like, man, those are my kids. Those are my players. Like they go through stuff like this. And it just really, for the first time, pierced my heart for the well-being of my players. Oh, yep, I see. All right, so foster care training, obviously we got our license. My oldest 2, Mac and Grace, so the 2 on the left, we fostered both of them, and then were able to ultimately adopt both of them after about 2.5 years each. And then the screaming child on the right is my biological child, Mary Kate. Well, I'll tell this story, real quick. So we have 0 children. All right, I say, all right, we'll do the foster care deal. We go through 14 months of training, and the whole time we're training, they're like, look, Now, once you get your license, you're probably going to get a call within like a week. So you need to be ready. You need to be ready. You need to be ready. Months go by, and we don't get a phone call. And, I'm just being honest with you. I'm kind of thinking, whew, we're making it. We're making it. My wife's broken hearted because she wants a child now. And I'm like, oh, we made it another week, Mac, we got Mac when he was 6 months old, right after Christmas. And then we have Mac, we got him in January. So in July, my wife says, I think, and we didn't get into foster care because we couldn't have children. This was something that we just really felt like the Lord was calling us to. July, my wife says, I think that we should try to have our own child, a biological child. And I said, there's a baby right here, we might adopt him, we don't know, we're fostering right now, okay, whatever. We did not have a problem getting pregnant because she woke me up in mid-August on a Saturday morning after a football game and said, hey, surprise, I'm pregnant, which, I was thrilled, but a little nervous because we had already had a child who was, at this time, about a year old, and we didn't know what that process would look like. So she wakes me up Saturday morning and tells me she's pregnant. Monday, 2 days later, we have a 1-year-old foster child. She is pregnant. 2 days later on a Monday. I'm in meetings with my players, and she calls me. And my wife knows my schedule better than I do. And so I side button her and decide if she calls me back, to be important, I'll answer it. She didn't, so I thought it was okay. I finished the meeting with my players, and I'm walking to the practice field, and I call her just to make sure everything's all right. I said, hey, everything okay? She said, yes. DSS just called us. They have a 6-day-old little girl that needs a home. I said, honey, we have a 1-year-old foster child. You just told me you're pregnant 2 days ago. It's the middle of football season. I am in a PhD program. We'll talk about this when I get home. I came home to a 6-day-old little girl in my den. My wife will tell you, and this is so true, and throughout this story, you will see my wife is the most important person in my life. The Lord uses her to get to me a lot, and she will tell you, I have not done what Drew's told me to do 2 times, and that was one of them. And now look, I was mad, when I got home. I was not happy, but now, the Lord sort of took that out of my hands because He knew I was going to say no, and she just went to the hospital, got her, and brought her home, and now, she's my girl now. That's her now, sort of all grown up. So let me get back on track here. I'm sorry. So foster care training really opened my eyes to what the realities of a lot of my players were. They didn't grow up like me. I was very fortunate to grow up in a loving home with 2 parents, and again, on third base with Derek Jeter at the plate, no outs, I was good to go. There's another side to this, is what I learned. During this time, I had a group I was the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach at Sumter, and I had a group of 5 guys who were just really great players, and they started as 10th graders, and that was a rough year. Started as juniors, they got better, and by their senior year, we were really good. I mean, really, really good. And the bad thing about all that is, they were all 5 seniors, so I lost all 5 of them right before I had, 3 children in the span of 14 months. And so I had a new group of players who I'd been coaching, but, didn't have my full attention, and they were not as good. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was mad at them because they weren't as good as the guys that I'd had before. And I didn't think that for the most part they worked really hard. I didn't think they were great people. Didn't think they had great character. And I really didn't like them. that's the reality. I really did not like them. But the main reason I didn't like them is because they weren't as good as I wanted them to be. And so, I'm at home, I'm talking about my frustrations to my wife, and she says, well, why don't we have them over for dinner? I said, honey, you're not listening to me. I don't like them. I don't want to spend more time with them. I really think we should have them over to our house for dinner after practice on Tuesday. And I just said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she just kind of continues on. And so finally, just to appease her, because I'm tired of hearing about it, I invite them all over to my house for dinner. And I don't know, the Lord just really used this time again to sort of, and like, we sit down and we start talking a little bit. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not real happy about being there. I really don't want to spend extra time with these guys, but my wife sits down, my children are crawling around, and I see some of these guys who, deep down, I don't think they're good people. I don't think they have good character. I don't think, and they start like playing with my children. And my wife starts asking them questions about, not football questions, right? Because the only thing I'm concerned about is what can you do on the foot, but like, who do you live with? You live with, what I'm saying? Asking them more personal questions and getting to know them. And I'm going to be honest with you, I needed to see my wife do that to understand, oh, you can do that, because I thought that I needed to have a good separation between the two in order to coach them. And so this was that first group of players. They started coming over to our house in late September. By October, my wife got them all, Halloween things. Some of them came the next night and brought my children trick-or-treating. You can see Mac in the front row right there, and Grace being held in the back. And just throughout the course of the year, the Lord changed my heart towards them, and I started really liking them and really enjoying being around them and really enjoyed working, trying to help them get better, but also help in other ways that I could outside of football, and just developed a relationship with them and cared about them more about who they were as people, how I could help them grow, as opposed to what can they do for me? How can they help me win? All right, and that was sort of a shift that I needed to go through. It started with just, offensive linemen, and by the end, it grew to, then the defensive line started coming, and then half of the team started coming over to my house. I was just, the offensive coordinator, and then, the challenges with that are, it costs a lot of money to feed that many guys, but after about 3 or 4 weeks, a couple of people in our church found out about it, and they said, hey, we want to kind of just sponsor the meal for you. We'll bring it. Then a couple other people, and as we grew and as we had more guys coming, I think one night our highest night was 42 guys, 42 high school football players. We fed them every night. And it was an initial investment on our part, but the Lord showed up and the Lord took care of that for us. Again, my wife's not working, it's just me, and we've got 3 children. So things are really tough, but I think that sort of the lesson I learned in this is be obedient to what He calls you to do, and He will provide a way for you to make it happen. He gave you a brain also, have some intelligence about what you're doing, but be obedient and He will provide a way. I guess 2 years after this picture was taken, I got the job at South Florence. And I'd wanted to be a head coach for a long time. I'd interviewed for a lot of jobs. A lot of things just kind of never were able to quite fall into place. South Florence was super easy. Interviewed, my wife wanted to go, everything seemed to line up. We took the job. And when I got the job, truthfully, I threw most of all of the things that God had taught me over the previous years. I just kind of threw them to the side and was really focused on building my kingdom. And the first thing I did when I walked in my office was I got a red Expo marker and wrote in the top left-hand corner of that whiteboard, goal, win the 2020 state championship. And I served that goal, that master in my life for 2.5 years. And that was the most important thing in the world to me. I woke up every morning thinking about what do I need to do to improve our team so that we can win a state championship. Every single thing I did, every decision I made, every interaction I had with anybody was all focused on what do I need to do to win a state championship. And truthfully, that was the only thing that was important to me at that time. My wife and children were put on the back burner. And I thought that was okay, because I was a head coach now and I needed to focus on this. Relationships with players were almost totally thrown away. What I had learned, I just threw it away because now my name's on it. Now my name's on the whole thing. And I've got to work really hard to make sure that we achieve all the things that I want us to achieve. And, during that time, I got the job in 2020. COVID happened. My first year, focusing on winning a state championship, 2-6. Don't even make the playoffs. The next year, 7-4, losing the first round. And I'm so frustrated because I can't get everybody to play to the level I know we need to play to. And I can't get my coaches to understand the standards that I want to enforce. And you know what I'm saying? And I am just so frustrated to the point where, truthfully, I thought about resigning. I thought, I just can't do this. Clearly, I don't know enough. I just need to go back to being an assistant, focusing on one group. This is too big. This is too much. But I had Lenore Sellers. Nobody knew who Lenore Sellers was yet, but I knew he was coming. And so, truthfully, that's about the only reason I stayed, is because I said, this cat's going to be, like, even if I can't get everything right around him, he's going to be good enough. I mean, ask Shane Beamer. He's going to be good enough that he can make everybody else look really good. And that's kind of why I stayed. And then the spring going into my third year, we had a player, Quay Dickens, who was shot and killed in Myrtle Beach. I was actually at church that Sunday morning. Had one of my coaches called me, side button, another coach called me, and then that one who called me first called me again. I just knew in my gut something wasn't right. And so as soon as church got over, called him back. He said, hey, late last night, Quay was shot and killed. Quay was a senior in 2021, so he was a month away from graduating. And, that really shook me. I'd had some players, but never one who I was kind of so close with, had worked so much directly with, be killed. And his parents asked me to speak at his funeral the next week, and they did the funeral at South Florence. And I remember sitting in my office 1 hour before the funeral was supposed to happen, and I'm staring at a blank screen because I have no idea what you say at a 17-year-old's funeral. But really deep down, I also felt a lot of pain and a lot of regret, because I knew kind of the things that I should be able to get up there and say about how great of a kid he was, about how much I loved spending time with him, getting to know him, about how close we were, but I knew none of those things were true. And one thing I just can't do, I'm just not good at saying something that's not true. And so I knew I couldn't say that. And I was just really frustrated because I didn't know what to say. And I was sitting in my chair, and I just kind of spun around, and I saw that whiteboard. And I saw the top left corner. And at that time, I kind of changed it every year. It said, goal, win the 2022 state championship. And as only he can do, the Lord just really, 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 really convicted me in that moment. And just, as close as one can be now to hearing from him audibly, I felt in my spirit and in my heart him saying, Drew, you have completely and totally screwed up the last 2.5 years. And it has nothing to do with your record, but it has everything to do with, I gave you this opportunity, I gave you this football program to steward, and you are not doing it well because the only person who you are concerned with is you. And, I ended up, I don't have a clue what I said. I went out there and I said something, and I came right back into my office after the funeral was over, and I erased goal, win the 2022 state championship. And I wrote this, goal, make a life-changing impact on my players. That's just kind of what I felt in that moment the Lord was calling me to, make a life-changing impact on the players. And, the whole lens that I was, looking at my program and my players through changed from what do we have to do to win to how can I help my players grow? How can I help my players become better men? How can I help break the side, not just be a guy who complains, man, kids don't work as hard, man, kids. How can I not be that guy, but help show them, help teach them, and help them have hopefully a better life when they leave our football program than when they came into it? How can I help them change, really, what was the heart behind this? And let's see. I lost my spelling. I've got to stay on schedule here. How can I serve them? Okay, that was another kind of big. How can I serve them and help them become better? Now listen, okay, I think this is very important, especially in today's day and age. The idea of servant leadership, I think, has gotten a little bit, we've gone from one ditch into another. I believe that servant leadership is good, but I also believe that a lot of people take it too far, and I know a lot of you are leaders. Servant leadership is not about you doing all the work for everybody else in the organization, okay? The way I believed, and I believe this in my heart, that I can best serve my players is to teach them discipline and to hold them accountable to high standards, because that is what is lacking everywhere. It's lacking in our schools. We don't hold kids accountable in the hallways. It's lacking in homes. It's lacking everywhere. And so one of the things that I am fanatical about is setting standards, holding them to high standards, the accountability part, and then teaching them discipline. I think those three things, if you want to talk about serving and helping someone learn something, teaching somebody something, I don't think there's anything much more valuable than that. And in terms of, from a worldly standpoint. Sorry, see, I just need to read my notes. All right, so how can I serve them? All right, the Lord called us, again, to start feeding them supper, but not just supper in our homes once a week, but every single night. I felt like He was calling us to serve our players it kind of began by serving them supper. We were going into our the third year, so right after Quay was killed, and I was having my quiet time one morning, and I felt like the Lord was just like, Drew, I want you to figure out how to feed your football team supper. All 70 of them. And, I thought that was kind of weird. Didn't say anything about it, again, for a week, hoping the thought would pass, and it didn't. Talked to my wife about it, and she said, I think we need to do it. I said, of course you do. You're always all in. So listen, at this time we had like $4,000 in our Booster Club account. Like we were not popular, and we did not have any money. And so most of that money had already been allocated. And so the first time we fed our players supper, I used my credit card. And we bought Sonic cheeseburgers. The next night, I used my credit card, and we bought, I think we got pizza. And then somebody at the school found out about it and said, oh, I heard you fed your kids supper the last 2 nights. Yes. Hey, my husband owns this whatever business, wants to write you a check. Awesome. Make it out to the Booster Club. $5,000. Didn't ask for it, $5,000. So that fed us for however long. Okay. And we get to the end. I'm talking about down to like $300. And I'm like, I have to put this on my credit card again. That's all right. Somebody calls me out of the blue. Hey, I hear you're feeding your players supper every night. Yes, that's something that we're trying to work towards doing. Cool. I want to write you a check for $10,000. Awesome. Go through all that money, and we think, the season's going to end after 10, 11 games, but we end up going and playing for a state championship. So the last 15 weeks, we get to the playoffs, we're out of money again. Hey, you know what I'm saying? And the Lord just kept providing a way and kept showing up and kept allowing us to do it. Well, that started in, August of 2022, and since then we fed our players supper every single night, 6 nights a week, Sunday through Friday night, and I paid for it 2 times. Every other time he has sent people. We have a number of churches now who come and donate, or we've raised enough money that we can use that money for that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just a really neat way that we can serve our players and gives them look, it's the South. You know what I'm saying? Relationships are built over food. If there's no food, nobody's coming. And so it's been really good as far as that's gone. But the Lord continued to grow even past that. I did a player bucket list. One of the things that I wanted to do was have sort of a list of things that I wanted every player to experience, maybe that they wouldn't experience otherwise, wanted them to experience while they were at South Florence. One of the things I found out was I sent out like a survey, and I found out that over 50% of our kids had never eaten at what I would consider to be just like a middle-class restaurant, just Outback, Longhorn, something like that. Over 50% of our kids had never gone in, sat down, ordered food, whatever. And so we've been able to take our team to Outback a couple times. I think there's a picture in here for a 707 camp at Tennessee there on the left, and then we took them to the Cheesecake Factory when we got done. And that was something that's just, I love watching them go in and see everything and order. And we tell them, order what you want off the menu. Like, we work hard to raise money to invest in our kids. And we want to invest in experiences and opportunities for them. And these are sort of some of the things that we're able to do. Last summer, we went to both Duke and UNC. We took, I think, about 50 players to Duke and 30-ish players to UNC. That's Lenore's before he was Lenore Sellers. There with my son. Him over there after practice, just with food. Again, sometime during the playoffs, Chick-fil-A after practice. And so it's just become a really neat way that the Lord has provided ways for us to invest in our kids. Not just this, but going on visits to different colleges. We've been to Georgia, South Carolina, of course UNC, Tennessee, all those different places. I don't have money for this from the school, but we've raised enough money. I've hired a guy he's got one job. He's our next level coordinator, and he meets individually with every player in our program, starting when they were freshmen all the way until second semester of their senior year. And he meets with them to help them figure out what it is they want to do with their life. I want everybody to have a plan when they leave us. Just not definite, but have some idea, because so many of our kids now, they get done with high school and there's been no thought put into what's next. So many of our kids just live for the next day, if they think that far. And so, that's one of the things that we're really trying to do is push, do you want to go to college? If so, where? And if you want to go to a place like Clemson, like what classes do you need? Help prepare them a little bit more so that when they get there and they decide this is what I want to do, they're in better position to be able to achieve whatever it is they want, okay? Military, had a kid spent the entire summer in Oklahoma doing basic training. He went early. He's done, I'm not exactly sure how the military all works, but he went this summer and I guess got basic training done already. He's going to finish high school and then he'll be able to go in, I guess, higher or not have to do the basic training part. But, he's got a head start on what he wants to do when he leaves. Hey, I want to be a welder. Great. We've got a good welding program at South Florence. You can also go to Florence Darlington Tech, hear the different welding certificates. I've learned all kinds of stuff through helping them be more prepared when they leave to be successful. What time am I supposed to be done? 40? Yep. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so as we're doing all these things and as we're growing, things are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's getting harder and harder for me to manage, all the aspects of what we're trying to do. And so the last thing that I'll just tell you is just sort of briefly organizationally what our football program, what we've tried to build the program to fuel and to accomplish, I guess you could say. So our purpose, I begin with a purpose for everything. Our purpose is why we exist. And our purpose is to honor the Lord in winning football games and equipping our players for their life after football. The three words in our purpose that are really important are honor, win, and equip. After this last football season, every kind of January, this is what I do. I'm a big duck hunter. I love to go out west to Arkansas, Oklahoma, all that. My brother and I and two other guys, like, we get in a truck and start driving. And I know that sounds absolutely insane, but it is like the only time I can kind of check out from football a little bit and get into a space where I can think a little bit more. So on the way out there, I start kind of going through, and I want to be very intentional, and I want to make sure that the things I say, like if I say my purpose is to honor the Lord in winning football games and equipping our players for their life after football, I want to make sure there's a lot of evidence of that. So if you were to come in and say, hey, is it really? Yeah, here's what we're doing. Plenty of evidence of the work we put in that goes into winning. Plenty of evidence, I think, excuse me, of what we put into equipping our players for their life after football, the experiences and opportunities we're trying to create for them. But I got to the honor the Lord part. And I started thinking, like, do I have that in there because it sounds good? Do I have that in there because I know I'm supposed to as a Christian? Do I have that in there because I hope that the Lord will honor that and bless me and help me keep winning? Like, where is the evidence of honoring the Lord? And I really wrestled with this, like, for hours and then for days. And then, you know, when I get back home, I sit down with my wife and she's going to help me, you know, sort everything out. And I said, you know, I want to be more intentional about how we honor the Lord. Like, how can we really do that so that there's evidence of it? So we immediately this spring, we began having a Bible study in our home. It started with... It probably started with about 7, 8, maybe 9 guys and grew to almost 40. And that was something that was really, really neat to see how our kids kind of grew. We went to an FCA camp this summer. And it was a really, really awesome time, 3 days spent together. There was a speaker every night. And it was a good investment, I thought, in their... Where for 3 days, it was sort of, we were playing football, but it was my intention and the intention of everybody else at the camp was not football. It was teaching them about who Jesus is. And there are rare opportunities that you can spend that chunk of time doing that, you know. And then another thing that I just really felt like the Lord was calling me to, and I think that this is something that's scary for me because I live in my head of this, you know, sometimes I'm afraid to share my faith because I know that yesterday I got angry at this kid and I chewed this kid out and now I'm going to talk about Jesus and those things don't really align, right? So sometimes my own shortcomings, which is the very essence of why we need Jesus, right, keeps me from sharing my faith. But I really felt like the Lord was calling me to, like, the things you come before me every morning and pray about, I want you to share them with your players. The things that you're sick about, that you screwed up, I want you to go and ask your players for forgiveness. You ought to see the look on some of our players' faces when I go to them the next day and I ask their forgiveness for getting angry at them. But, I mean, like, we have this idea that we got to, like, get on a plane and go to Africa to be missionaries for the Lord, but ask for forgiveness for somebody who you work with. Humble yourself enough to do that, and that's sharing Jesus with them, you know. And so those were just sort of some of the things that the Lord laid on my heart in terms of how can I honor the Lord in my work, in what I'm doing. I thought that those were all things that have been, you know, really, really good for us. I don't know if anybody read Jim Rohn or not, but I really like all of his stuff. He's got tons of stuff on YouTube that are very insightful, very wise guy. If you ever get a chance to listen to any of his stuff or read any of his books, they're really good. But he says something that I love. And he says, all good will be attacked. Everything that is good in this world, because we live in a sinful, fallen world, all that is good will be attacked. And all values must be defended. I think that those are two things that you should keep in mind as you go through your journey of when you try to do good, it's going to be attacked. And that's okay, you know. Hopefully having a group of men like this together can help encourage one another, can help, you know, I don't know. I don't know exactly how the Lord can use this in your life, because I think everybody's life is so different and so specific to your problems, your issues. But all good will be attacked. So if you're trying to do good, it's probably going to be attacked, and that's okay. Keep going. Don't fall or quit. You know, it takes a tremendous amount of faith and understanding and studying of God's Word and being in God's Word all the time and failing and accepting grace and moving on. And if there's one thing that I can encourage all of you to do today, it would be that. It would be to share your faith with those who are around you, to fail, and to ask for God's grace and forgiveness and tell people how thankful you are for God's grace and forgiveness. And for me personally, and I'm as introverted as they come, I've been nervous about this for 2 days, getting up in front of y'all and talking. But for me, if you're not good at just going and having a conversation with somebody, like, the Lord has really given that to me. Like, when you screw up, you tell them you screwed up. And you ask for forgiveness. Don't just say, I'm sorry. You ask for forgiveness, and you tell them why you're asking for forgiveness. And it's like the whole gospel right there. You know, so if you screw up as much as I do, which is a lot, you'll be a phenomenal witness for everybody in your workplace. And thank you guys again so much, for having me and for the opportunity to speak. And that's all I got. So thanks.